good news. Pnawn da pawb, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to this special meeting of Powys County Council. Could I ask Steve if you could advise me of any apologies that we've received?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies from Councillor Shan Cox, Alwyn Evans, James Gibson-Watt, Gareth Pugh, Carol Robinson, Ange Williams, and I'm not sure if they're in the meeting, but Councillors Amanda Jenner, David Selby, and Lucy Roberts.
Thank you, Steve. I'm also aware that Councillor Tom Colbert is attending a family funeral in Pembrokeshire, so it's highly unlikely that he's with us either.
Chair, sorry to interrupt. I also have apologies from Councillor Adam Kennelly.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Richard. Otherwise, any other additional apologies to be advised of?
Councillor Angela Williams as well. She's unable. She's just finished her treatment.
Absolutely, and we wish her well. Thank you very much, Councillor Jeremy. Moving now to items of declaration of interest. If any colleagues have particular angles to declare on this, they should do so in the usual way. I'd wait any indications. Councillor Deb.
Yeah, I have to declare interest. I'm employed by an operator that may be affected by this.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And then there's the online sort of declaration follow-up, which I know you'll complete. Any other colleagues? Any declarations to declare? I can't see any indications. No.
Councillor Bill, I've just joined, rejoined. I don't know what you're asking about the declaration.
Absolutely, no problem at all, Councillor. So I'm just we just got to declarations of interest, and we're just exploring whether there are any further ones. We've had one declaration from a member who's involved with a bus operator.
Okay.
And being a bus user, I'd like to think most of us are bus users. But I don't think that's.
Yeah, that doesn't count.
No, that was. I was hoping not. Otherwise, that would extend proceedings. Excellent.
Yeah,
good.
Thank you.
No,
Nice to have a bus.
Okay, fair enough. I hear that sentiment and understand it. Agenda item 3: award of public transport network September 2025, to consider the report before us. I'm now looking to Councillor Jackie to set a little context here and to say what she has to say by way of introduction. Over to you, Jackie.
To allow members to come in with any questions. But the reason we're having to bring this paper to you today is to approve a virement of 1.349 million in this financial year from SPF grants, a reserve and the risk budget to finance the decision of the Cabinet on the 24th of June 2025 to accept option A, see paragraph 3.4, as the future for public bus services in Powys for the next 7 years. And it was also recommended by the ERC Scrutiny Committee. The paper before you today gives you an outline of the implications of the public transport proposals. Both Cabinet and Economy, Communities and Residents Scrutiny Committee have recommended option A. To fulfil those recommendations for the virement of 1.349 million, it is necessary to get the approval of the full council. I'll just give you a quick overview of the reasons why it's important to do this. To say that we know what the purpose of the report is, and just to re-emphasise that option A has been recommended by both Cabinet and ERC. Some of the key features that we're hoping that the new contracts will bring along, if you approve this virement today, will be a 7-day service, extended hours, and up to 9 p.m. on some of our service network. It also covers a hub and spoke model, which brings in locality, or it connects localities in the core towns or the hubs with onward travel to strategic destinations. It's designed to support school transport, reducing the need for dedicated school buses, and it's environmentally focused, which includes expanding an electric bus network and reducing the carbon reduction targets, or bringing in reduction to the carbon targets.
Councillor Jackie, could I just ask before you go further, if you could just remind us what your preferred method is in terms of questions, whether we're looking at the end or if you're happy to take indications as you proceed, because I lost the first few words of your remark.
I know. I'm really sorry. I've got a big piece of plumbing work going on in my property at the moment, and as I was talking, the drill went. I'm hoping it's going to stop now. I'm quite happy for members to come in at any time. I haven't really got much else to say, but we do have officers on the call to ask and answer any technical questions, and I know there are some questions coming forward from members. But just to quickly say that, there is strategic and social justification for what we're doing here. And also the model that we've chosen provides us with much better accessibility to all of those public services, health services and other services. So if I just give you a quick overview for this, there is an increase, a 33% increase access to public services, a 25% increase access to daily essentials, and 46% increase access to health and well-being. So I think at that point, Chair, I will stop. The drilling has just started again. Sorry.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jackie. I've got 3 indications, and it's not immediately clear to me in what order they are, but the order in which I saw them were Councillor Elwyn, Councillor Gareth, and Councillor Glynn. Those are the only 3 that I'm aware of at this time.
Councillor Jeremy and Councillor Bryn was before Councillor Glynn.
Okay, that's helpful. Are we content for Councillor Elwyn to kick off and for Councillor Gareth to stand by? I haven't got an indication of order otherwise.
Chair, if it helps you, the order which I've got it is Councillor Elwyn, Councillor Jeremy Pugh. Councillor Gareth has just gone for some reason. He was there.
Okay.
But I think he was Councillor Elwyn, Councillor Gareth, Councillor Jeremy, Councillor Bryn, Councillor Glynn, Councillor Aled, and Gareth's right at the end again. So, Councillor Gareth, I think you moved for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Okay, well, in that case, we'll kick off with Councillor Elwyn and Councillor Jeremy to stand by. Is that that's the initial order, yeah?
Diolch, Cadeirydd.
Well,
the first point I would like to ask is, why are we having this discussion at this late stage? I think it's highly unfortunate, to say the least, and highly unprofessional, some would argue, that we're having such a vital, important discussion, discussing multi-million-pound contracts at the very last minute, when it's been known for months when the new contracts would be in place. It does not look good. It looks unprofessional. And I would like to see clarity on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Elwyn. Councillor Jeremy, are you able to put your question just now, and then I think we should probably pause for
Councillor Gareth was before me.
Oh, Councillor Gareth. Well, fair enough. That's the order we'll take it. Councillor Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, I've got a couple of questions, but I want a point of clarity to start with. The point of clarity is the 9 new routes that are going to provide under-school transport, be used for under-school transport. Are they new routes, or are they replacing existing under-school transport routes?
Okay.
That's my first question. Once I answer that, I'll come back with a supplementary and my second question.
Okay. So in that case, if we could have a response to the opening question from Councillor Elwyn, and then your seeking information. Those are the first 2.
Did you want me to respond, Chair?
I'm not sure who's best placed to respond. I think, given the breadth of the first intervention from Councillor Elwyn, it's probably better that you at least take the start of responding to that. I don't know, and obviously you'll be aware of at the point where it's appropriate to defer to officers for issues of detail.
Yeah, I will do that. Just to come back on Councillor Elwyn, I'm really disappointed that you think this has been unprofessional. I think this has been one of the most professional processes I've seen in this authority since I've been a cabinet member, looking at the really extensive contracts that we have with local providers here in Powys, making sure that we could extend wherever possible our existing network of transport, and making sure that we delivered on all of the things that people have asked for. We went through an extensive engagement process last year in 2024. We then had to go through a consultation process, which we did. We achieved everything from that. That consultation process took all of the information from the engagement part of the process, where we were able to then influence and plan what routes were expected after talking to bus users, county councillors, local communities, etc. When we did that after the consultation, we then were in a position to go out to extend to our contractors the opportunity to tender for the contracts. That again is another full-blown process that we have to go through. We did that. They were very complicated contracts, and I think we've got some really, really good contracts for our providers here. Once that's been done, we then have to go through another process to make sure that the scrutiny was upheld. We've done that. And when scrutiny had gone through the scrutiny process, we then have to go to Cabinet to approve the contracts and take us forward. Until that point, we weren't in a position to ask for this disbarment because it could have gone a different way. So to say that it's been unprofessional, I think I'm really disappointed in that comment. And perhaps I'll bring in the head of HTR to respond to the other points that you've raised.
Sorry, Chair.
Thank you.
Can I come back to that?
I'd rather you didn't. Thank you, Chair.
No. I come back. Having such a vital meeting on this subject, and the last last opportunity is not good practice from a democratic process, right? And that's what the look is at the moment. We're being railroaded into take it or leave it situation where that should not be happening. We should have had more time, not leave it the last day.
I think this has been through a full democratic process. It's been through scrutiny, it's been through Cabinet, it's been out for engagement, it's gone through the process for contracts in the most appropriate way, and there's been no problems with that. If you've got an issue with the democratic process, perhaps you'd like to speak to the monitoring officer outside this meeting.
The democratic process, as you've just said, needs the full support of full council. Otherwise, why are we meeting today? Or is it just a paper exercise? If our voices actually count, we should be given a fair opportunity, not hold a pistol to our heads. Thank you. I'll leave it at that.
Chair, you're on mute, and you've been on mute for quite some time.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important now that we hear from John Forsey, who's headed up the professional officer team that's been busy on this matter for a considerable period. John.
Chair, thanks. Yeah, we started this process nearly a year ago now, and it is an incredibly complex process. It's simply not a case of taking a network and simply regurgitating it. What hasn't helped us, and it's not an excuse, but it is an explanatory reason, is that the procurement regulations have now changed from what we were used to a new set of procurement regulations coming in October, which led to a little bit of delay. But in terms of going through the correct process to ensure that we do our due diligence in terms of consulting, engaging, trying to get the best contracts that we can. We've moved to a different system now where we've got a dynamic purchase and solution rather than a closed framework, which allows opportunities for new suppliers to enter the market as we reopen the dynamic purchase and solution. And so it's been a bit of a fundamental shift. However, we've got to where we are today, and this is now about trying to sort out and regularize our public transport network going forward for the next for the foreseeable future of the contract term.
Thank you, John, for that explanation. If we could now go across to Councillor Gareth Jones's point, where he was seeking information before coming back with the supplementaries.
Happy to pick that one up as well, Chair. Councillor Jones, we've put new bus services on. The most efficient way of doing that is to integrate as many school learners onto the morning and afternoon journeys to get the maximum. So we're not paying for a school bus and a service bus to follow each other down the road. We integrate them to provide that efficiency as best we can.
Thank you, John. That's what I thought the answer would be. So in effect, the 9 new public service routes are replacing previous home to school transport routes. Therefore, I would, well, Sarah's shaking her head in disagreement.
If I can just come
Sarah, please come in for clarification. Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify, I think the reference to 9 routes in the paper is that if we didn't go with option A, then we would be in a situation where we would have to create 9 new closed school contracts based on a do nothing network. So if we retain the network as it was, we would end up with an additional 9 closed school contracts that we would have to go out to tender for. Thereby increasing the costs for home school transport by around £500,000.
Yeah, but those pupils are already being transported to schools.
Yes.
So my point around that is that, and I understand they won't. Well, there is by doing the way we do, which I fully support, that we should make the best use of public services buses, but that is reducing the cost of the home school transport budget. And there's no reflection of that reduction in this paper. And I think that's something we need to consider as we go forward on that one. Can I make a couple of other points? I'm not going to pick them up, but there are a number of numerical errors in the paper. Not significant, but there are a number, and it's disappointing that there's figures in the table that when repeated in narrative, there are different figures used. But can I just ask, this proposes is around this year's environment for 25-26. Looking at the figures, it quotes the £2.3 million that's going to be increased cost by 30-31, but the majority of that, 2.2 million of that, is in 26-27. If that comes out of council tax, that's a 2% increase in around about 2% increase in council tax. I noted in the paper that it's proposed to use the 1.2 million. That was the base increase in our funding that was approved by full council in February. My understanding of what I thought we discussed and agreed as full council was that money was going to be used for potholes or something else, more for the general highways facilities and not for home to school for public service transport. So I just want to have some clarity around this is the environment for 25-26. What's going to happen in 26-27, and what's the long-term impact on the county council's overall budget? Is at the moment in my mind it's a 2% increase in council tax, which I don't personally think I can support as it stands.
Thank you, Gareth. John, do you wish to respond?
Yes, so we're looking at environment this year, in year which has been detailed through risk budget, reserve and shared prosperity funding. The future years will be dealt with through the budget setting process as per the recommendation.
So it could be an increase of 2% on the council tax.
Jane, you wish to make a point?
Yes, please. I see Councillor David has put his hand up as well, so I would refer to the cabinet member first.
Yeah.
David wants to respond to that question, but I'm happy to come in if he wishes me to.
Councillor David, we're in your hands on that point.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think with regard to the recurring costs going forward, I think it's a bit premature to suggest that that'll have to be funded out of council tax, because we don't know what settlement we're going to receive from Welsh Government and what the RSG will be. And ideally, we'd like to accommodate it within that. There is a suggestion there that the funding could come from the floor that was received through the 25-26 budget, but that's not set in stone. That we haven't actually said that is what we're going to do. And I think it's worth remembering as well that this whole process is part of the Sustainable Powys sort of vision, and within that there are going to be service areas that will be seeing significant savings, and there will be some service areas to help deliver those changes that might see increases in spending. So overall, I think what's important at the end of the day, but you won't see that in this report, but you certainly see it in the budget report, is that the net figure at the end of it will be a negative, and we will still be generating savings. But at this stage, it's premature to suggest that we'd be actually putting 2% on council tax. And I'll defer to Jane now, and I'm sure she can add to that.
Thank you, Councillor David. Jane?
I've got nothing further to add, as opposed to what Councillor David said. I think he's covered all the points that I would be raising.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a significant number of indications for questions. Before I proceed, I just want to check whether either Councillor Jackie or indeed John or Sarah have any further issues by way of presentation, because I'm conscious, having been involved in chairing 2 member development sessions, I've sort of brought that kind of approach rather than the more formal style in inviting those questions in this manner. But it was the preference that Councillor Jackie had expressed. So if I can just go back to my note, I now, Councillor Gareth, have your questions been exhausted for now?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I have Councillor Jeremy, and if I could ask Councillor Bryn to stand by. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Personally, the lateness of this meeting and the possibility of 2% up on council tax, to call this at the last minute, to say this lacks professionalism, is a joke. In the real world, this is unbelievable. And if you say that you've gone through this extensive consultation period, and at the end of it, then you didn't table a meeting and allow enough time to have proper debate, the information coming forward is also shockingly poor. You know, what we need to understand is, how is this going to impact on the school budget? You can't run one without the other. Instead of cutting your leg off and wonder why you hop into the shop, you need to sort this. This is poor. To turn around then, and David, I've got a lot of respect for you, but your response was full of ifs, ands, and possibilities. You can't deal with that in the real world. People are struggling. Children are going to school cold with their coats on. And we're spending extra money on extra bus routes that, yes, we may need, but what is our priority? Is education our priority? People's that stuff. This can't be allowed to happen. I'm very sorry. This is shocking. 4 years ago, I met with it was in John Forsey's position now, and I said, if you keep squeezing the bus companies, you'll do away with competition. And the problem is, the bus prices have gone up, and they've gone up, and they've gone up. What I then wrote to Sarah Layla Morgan and asked, can I have a simple question? Can you tell me what extra extensive things that the Cabinet have asked you to put in to the contracts? I got 4 pages back, very well written and very good. I didn't get a simple answer. All I wanted to know was the extra costs, i.e. all of a sudden the bus operators now, the Euro 4 buses, which will be running about 65,000, but now because they can't be used on the contracts, are now worth 14,000 for scrap. So the residual value for them to upgrade to the buses you want, and then we're putting every new bus has to be Euro 6. So all of a sudden, when we're actually trying to make carbon saving, the cost of doing away with something which has already been produced and the cost of the savings, you're actually working in a negative carbon environment, which is appalling because it's against what you all say you set out to do. So then we come back to the problem with the buses. Now, we're so late getting these contracts out, and I've been following the value of buses. They've actually risen, Euro 6 buses, by 20,000. Now, we should have been on this, and we should have known this. Now, what we should have been doing is talking with the operators. I've actually spoken with 3 or 4 of them, and if they were allowed to continue and upgrade gradually to Euro 5s and 6s, they believe in most occasions they could take 20 to 25% off what their costs were coming in. But again, you've come today, you've put a gun against our head saying it's got to be done today at the last minute, and allowing 45 minutes for a meeting of this magnitude, I'm very sorry, is extremely, extremely poor. And everyone needs to hold their heads down in shame, because this should never be happening. We've had more than enough time over the last 12 months to have scheduled this meeting in for a proper debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. I'm now going to invite Councillor Bryn to come in, and then Councillor Aled, and then we'll be able to have responses to the points raised. Thank you.
Diolch yn iawn, Cadeirydd. Oes y cyfieithydd ymlaen?
Yes, the translator is here. Bryn is asking.
Is there a
yes,
Councillor
Bryn. Yes, Councillor Bryn. We do have
Diolch.
translation.
Champion, diolch yn iawn.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, mae Cynghorydd Jeremy wedi
Councillor Jeremy has stated excellently what the problem is for small businesses, and that's the concern. This tendering process is actually worked against small companies very seriously. The additional routes aren't going to help people who live in rural areas, only the bigger villages and towns, and going in and out, and they're having special treatment really. And this spoken hub thing isn't really working, and the tendering process has actually worked against the small operators, and it's inevitably that it's only the big companies. Okay, they could be local ones, but competition is what's important really, and that's what's healthy. And
no, well, diolch yn iawn.
And thank you. I think I'll just end there with that point. But there's a lack of fairness for all companies that provide a good service, and local rural companies. And we need to look after these small businesses that work in rural Wales much better than what we're doing at the moment. And this unfairness, and we need a fairer powers, and to have to scrap good buses in order to get more up-to-date buses isn't a very green policy. Thank you.
Diolch, Bryn. I actually had omitted to call Councillor Glynn, who came in fractionally before Councillor Aled, and so I'm going to call Councillor Glynn and then Councillor Aled, and then we'll return for responses as appropriate. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. I'm a bit disappointed about some of the sort of analogies about cutting off legs and holding guns to heads. I just wanted to add my contribution to celebrate some success, I think. I mean, I'm just thinking about, my locality. It means that residents on the A470 corridor will now be able to get a bus on a Sunday into some of the major towns and access services on a Sunday, which is really, really important. There's going to be a demand-responsive route which will connect some of our villages. So, Councillor Bryn said, "Oh, this is doing little for people who live in the country." Actually, there's an expansion of some of the services that are being provided in the country. Trefeglwys, for instance, just down the road. It's said to be one of the largest villages in Wales, not served by a bus route, is now going to be served by a bus route. So I think there's some really good stuff in this paper, and I encourage others to support this this Parliament today. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch Glyn. Councillor Aled.
Diolch Cadeirydd, and thank you very much for the answers so far. I got a series of questions here, and to be honest, this forum isn't the best place for having that discussion. I've sent an email to portfolio leader and portfolio holder. I still haven't had a response to that, which is, unless you have, Councillor Jackie?
Yes, I do. Yes, I have a response.
Have you sent it to me?
I'm not sure whether it's been sent to you, Councillor Aled, but I've got a response here.
Okay. Well, just to start with, can you spell out the consequences of not passing this environment? I know there's been expressions of disappointment about the lateness, etc., etc. This is the previous contract was a 7-year contract. I understand, the huge amount of work that officers had to do, but to schedule it to a few moments before you have to sign the contract is really disappointing. But can you spell out the consequences of not wiring this money across to this budget to cover this additional cost? Then I got a few other questions to follow, please.
Could you deliver those? Could you deliver those questions now so that we can deal with that in the round?
Okay. I was quite disappointed that the scrutiny paper was not included in the pack. And I'm trying to get to it now. Sorry, Chair.
Why don't you take your time?
It's disappeared, but it does go back to. I got it. Within the scrutiny report, there are questions asked by scrutiny and really good series of questions, but there's not a full degree of answers within the scrutiny reports. It also talks about in one paragraph, it talked about 3.8 million being put into the FRM and then being taken out because of assurances from Welsh Government that there would be funding coming down the track. I'd like to know what assurance those were, because that assurance wasn't worth the paper it was written on. If we could see that exchange with Welsh Government, because the council received capital funding, was the revenue savings from that capital funding equivalent to the expected revenue support that was received? Because all this should have been detailed within the budget presentation back in February when the council was setting its budgets, rather than dipping into reserves for one-off expenditure that will have to go forward over the years. And it's not right for Councillor Thomas to talk about the flow. We don't know what level of the flow, if the flow will be achieved at all in the next budget round. This is a 7-year contract, and you're talking about an environment for 1 year only. We need certainty about the contracts going forward. Otherwise, it's pointless investing this money now and then having to pull the contracts when they're unaffordable in the future. I understand. We set budgets 1 year at a time, but this contract does increase pressure, whether it's funded or not. It does increase pressures on future budgets. Though Councillor Thomas's comments there were slightly disingenuous around that area. And then in the report itself, in section 3.1.4, could you explain that when you're talking about the additional new network of around 400,000 extra service miles in brackets, then it's got 1.8 M miles. Is that million miles to 2.25 M miles? Is that 2.5 million miles? And then you're talking about the improved access to public services of 33% to access daily essentials, 25% to help improve access to health and well-being, health and well-being by 46%. But is that for people who currently have bus services or not? Is that for the whole population or not? Because in my ward, parts of my ward, even parts of my ward weren't included on the map within the presentation. If there is no bus service there now, and there's no bus service in the future, how on earth do you use those percentage figures? It's a clear understanding of
that's 5 minutes, Councillor Davis.
Is not there.
Thank you, Councillor Aled. I think we're probably now at a point where we need to come to responses to the questions that you and previous colleagues have raised.
Thank you.
While I remind Councillor Bev and Councillor Richard Church to stand by, before I call either of them in, I'm going to ask Clive just to remind us of the protocols from the Constitution around length of contribution, because we've clearly got a limited envelope of time for this whole discussion, this important discussion, and I want to be clear and transparent to all subsequent questioners, particularly as some of the key issues are addressed in responses. So I'll ask Clive to come in before Councillor Bev and subsequent contributors. But if I go back now to either Councillor Jackie or to the or indeed to John Forsey for response.
So is Clive coming in first?
No, I was going to bring him in at the point prior to the next round of questioners.
All right. Okay, then. So I'll just go back over the questions that I've made notes of here. Going back to Councillor Jeremy Pugh. I think I'm going to bring in John Forsey on this one to go through the contracts, and you're talking about the Euro 5 and Euro 6 buses. From my understanding, I think most contractors are now on Euro 6 buses anyway, but I'll get that clarified for you. The tendering process, Councillor Bryn, the tendering process to small companies, again, I'll bring in John Forsey to give you an outline or an outline of how we went through the tendering process. From my understanding as well, we probably contract more small bus companies in Powys than any other local authority in Wales. And I think we're particularly proud with the way that we interact and work with our local bus contractors. And again, I think John Forsey or even Sarah Layla Morgan can explain to you exactly how we do interact with them and how we put forward these contracts. I think the procurement process was healthy. I think there is healthy competition out there, and I think we ought to be able to prove when we can. If we don't pass this environment today, we won't have any new contractors anyway. We will have to go back and reassess that and recontract for the contract in September. So that will cause us a lot of problems. But I think the procurement process that we've been through so far has been a very fair, very open, very transparent process. Have no problems with that at all. And we do look after our small contractors. I believe that's something that we do well here in Powys. Thank you to Glyn for explaining some of the extended routes that we have, especially along the A470. There are a lot of other extended routes. You will find in your pack all those extended routes and the 4 new services, completely new services that we're putting on. Some of those services have been asked for, and they're in fairly rural areas as well, but have been asked for over a number of years, and we've been able to address those in these contracts, specifically a route through Trecastle through to Llandovery that was withdrawn over 7 years ago. It's been called for across these last seven years, and we've managed to put that in, and some other services as well. Councillor Aled, the 7-year contracts, you will be very aware of how these contracts are delivered, and it's not a process that you can start early on. We started this process, I believe, as early as we possibly could, taking into consideration everybody's thoughts and concerns on this, including the contractors. And I understand and believe that they've been part of this process as well. So our existing contractors are very well engaged and consulted on. And I'm sure Sarah Leyland Morgan will be able to give you some feedback on that as well. So I'll ask her to come in and give a bit of feedback on that. The Welsh Government assurance, I mean, we have to take assurance when it's given to us. If they withdraw that assurance, then we have to deal with it as that comes forward. And I hope that we might be able to bring Jane in to just explain what's happened there. We used modelling that is available to us from the Welsh Government to do all our modelling on improving our services and getting the figures that we have on the wellbeing service, you know, how we've increased on wellbeing routes and all those other areas. So those are the questions, I think, Chair, that have been asked. If I've missed anything, I apologise. But if I could bring in John and Sarah and Jane on those 3 points that I haven't been able to answer.
Absolutely. And I'm also conscious that given that he was referred to specifically by at least one of the questioners earlier, that Councillor David Thomas has a right of response, and I've noted that he's raised his hand. But for now, let's go to John Forsey.
Thank you, Chair. Just referring back to Councillor Jeremy's point to help to clarify the situation, this paper is dealing with public transport. All our public transport vehicles currently operated by Euro 6 vehicles anyway, so there's no change. And I think perhaps what Councillor Pugh was referring to was home to school transport. We're in the process of procuring that. As it stands at the moment, it looks like we're going to achieve a balanced position with the home to school transport budget as it is. So I just wanted to clarify that position. Councillor Bryn made reference to small companies. We do engage a lot with lots of small and medium enterprises, and we also deal with large multinational companies as well during the procurement exercise. It is really important that SMEs are really important to us and the local economy. They do provide excellent services. It is just really unfortunate that as part of this process, sometimes people win, sometimes people lose. And when people lose, it is difficult. But that's, you know, that unfortunately that is the nature of the beast. I don't want to tread on Jane Thomas's toes, but in terms of the capital funding we received from Transport for Wales via Welsh Government, that's around about £6.5 million investment. And that's where the majority of the extra costs are for this year and halfway into next year, because as those new buses come into the contracts, that will significantly reduce our revenue expenditure by around about 850,000 per year. I think I've covered the main points. If I've missed anything, I apologise, but I'll give way to either Sarah or Jane if they need further clarification.
I did ask about the consequences of not providing them money today.
It's going to be really challenging, even if we stay as we are, and there is no proper mechanism because we are right at the end of the 7-year contract. Operators could seek additional funding to continue, so it could be at a significant extra cost. We've provided some estimates of what it could be to stand still. As Sarah's mentioned, there would be new school transport routes we'd have to procure as well in a very short time. It could land us in a position whilst going back out to tender within the available budget that we'd need to consult, because we could actually be procuring less if we have if there is no growth in the budget.
Thank you. Jane, I think you were the next in line in terms of officer response.
Muted. Jane.
Sorry, Chair. I think John covered the question around capital, but I didn't catch all of it, I must admit. So, Councillor Jackie, if he hasn't covered it, perhaps you could give me a bit of clarification as to what aspect you wanted me to respond to.
I think it's whether we've got assurance. We know that Welsh Government were going to provide us with some funding. I think it was Councillor Aled that brought that out. We were assured early on that they would cover that funding, and then they withdrew that funding, and we got a different figure, which is what has upset the figures. I don't know whether you could give us any feedback on that, or whether it's a bit difficult for you to feedback on that one today.
I don't have that level of detail here today. I think John did pick up some of that, but no, I would need to go and find that detail, I'm afraid.
Okay, I think otherwise that's fine. Thank you, Jane.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane. Councillor David Thomas, as indicated, you were referred to earlier, and it's only fair and appropriate that you have a chance to respond.
Thank you, Chair. If I can just address the issue that Councillor Aled Davis brought up with regard to the flow that was received last year from Welsh Government. I can confirm that that's going to be in the base budget going forward, and it is in the base budget for 26-27. The other point I'd like to make, I'm absolutely, I just can't believe, I'm amazed that we're getting this surprise about this paper coming forward, because we've never made any secret of the fact that public transport improvements were going to be integral to the whole concept of sustainable powers. And for that to come from Councillor Aled to say that he's surprised to hear about this, he actually sat in on a detailed discussion that we held with Joint Finance Panel and Governance and Audit, which explained fully what the Sustainable Powers Programme is going to look like going forward and what we wanted to achieve out of that. Now, what I will say, because it's been suggested that I include a lot of ifs and buts in my first response. Yes, there is an if there. If we deliver the sustainable powers concept, then that'll ensure that we can carry on delivering valued services to our residents within the limited financial envelope that we'll have going forward. But the but comes in, but if we don't deliver it, if we don't deliver sustainable powers, then we're putting this authority on the road to a declaration of a 114. And believe me, if this authority is concerned about democracy, if that happens, democracy will go out of the window. And this type of discussion we're having now will not be happening. These decisions will be taken for us, and the discussion will be with somebody else. So I just wanted to make that point, Mr. Chairman, as well as, you know, the points that the service themselves are bringing up with the detail around home to school transport, public transport, etc., and the contracts. Let's not lose sight of the fact that this paper is integral to the success of sustainable powers. And if we fail in that, the consequences are unthinkable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor David. Councillor Jackie has made a fresh indication, which I guess must mean that she needs to clarify a point that's just been made.
Yes, I would like to clarify a point. I just want to make sure that members understand that even if we stayed as we are for option B, which is in the paper, if you want to have a look at it, it's all there. The information is all there. It still cost us money, but we wouldn't have any extra services. And some of those services that are really valued by people, the extended services we're putting in, highly valued by people, wouldn't be available. And we would have to go back to contractors and deal with that issue as well. So it's not just a case of looking for this environment, it's looking at what it would look like if we don't have this environment. And it was never intended to come here and hold a gun at any member's head. That was never, ever the intention. But we have followed the due process. And I'm very happy is not the word, but I'm assured that we have followed the correct process. And we are where we are today because of the way that we have to develop these. We have to give 56 days notice for the licenses, which is why we have to do it today if we want to get these contracts running in September. So that's another added timeline onto this whole process. So I just wanted to make that point as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. I see an indication from Councillor Aled. Is this directly related to the question that you asked, Councillor Aled?
Yes, the paragraph 3.1.4 hasn't been addressed. And Councillor Thomas talks about sustainable powers. I accept that this is an investment in sustainable powers, but you have not shown the other side of the equation of where the savings will be delivered. You know, are you saying that leisure centres will be closed, but you've got a good bus service to take us to the leisure centre that's further away? And I've asked questions, Jackie. I sent you that email and I haven't had a response about the numbers of people who do not have access to bus services. You have closed a school in my ward a couple of weeks ago.
Excuse me, Councillor Aled, we will send that information through to you now. It is ready and available. I have some of the information in front of me. Some of it is not possible to respond to, but we have tried our level best to respond to your very, very complex questions.
Thank you, colleagues, for that. We've heard that, and Councillor Aled, you've had a significant right to question and respond, and that's appreciated. I now need to ask Clive to give us an indication regarding the constitutional position with regard to the questions. We still have a number of questions, but I'm going to ask Councillor Bev to come in immediately after Clive's advice, and then Councillor Richard Church to stand by, please. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. Members, the normal rules of debate for council applied to this meeting, and therefore members are restricted to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councillor Bev, followed by Councillor Richard Church. Councillor Bev, thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Chair. I'm getting there. So, yep, 3 minutes. I'll try not to be, I can't speak. I'll try not to be repetitive, but I do have some questions and comments. Firstly, following on, we've heard lots of members say, but very succinctly, I will just say I was disappointed that we are in this position. Several of us have asked further questions because we want to understand, we want clarity, we just want to understand the process of what we're being asked, not the process, but the information of what we're being asked. No one's criticising the democratic process, and no one is questioning the process it's been through with scrutiny. But what we're saying is that we're really stressed and anxious that we are being put in a position that we have to make a decision now today, when we've just heard that we can't. Councillor had asked further questions about specific routes and things, but we can't have that information because it's not to hand, which we all appreciate. That's why I myself sent in questions yesterday. I sent in a question yesterday asking for a breakdown of the figures, and I was told to refer to pages 1 to 4 where the tables were on the paper. Well, we'd read the paper, we were asking for some breakdowns and further clarity, and we were just trying to understand it because it's really complex with the home to school and everything else. But anyway, I'll move on to my questions quickly.
Thank you.
So, right, so having the extra bus routes is very welcome, we all think, but at what cost? A reality, I think, is that we could see a huge increase next year on our council tax or the following year. Should we be asking our residents if they want more buses, or would they like to get a leisure centre kept open? I understand the concept of sustainable Paris, and I understand what Councillor Davey is saying about sustainable Paris, but that doesn't mean to say I have to agree with the process of sustainable Paris, which I don't. My question specifically is, if this 2.4 million was put against leisure services, would that see us being able to keep open East Radnor, Bilth, Raider, Leisure Centre, etc.? I don't know. That's a question. I mean, how does that work? We don't know. And if we look at the additional proposed routes in the paper, it doesn't actually provide adequate provision, I believe, to allow my residents to access their local hub when they would like to. If you look at Prestine, for example, we are being given 2 buses a week to Leominster, which, again, great. No one's knocking the fact we get 2 buses a week to Leominster. We'll be able to access a bank because we haven't got one in Radnorshire anymore. And a bus which isn't detailed to Landrindod, which is our hub. So how often is that bus going to go to Landrindod? I don't know. This isn't probably the forum to answer that question because it's full council. So we just don't really know. So if we are to progress with this process, are we basically another step closer to sustainable Paris? My residents are expected to use services not only in another county, but another country by the look of it, because we're being expected to go to Leominster twice a week. So we'll be able to access a leisure centre twice a week. I don't know. We just don't know. That's my issue.
That's time.
Right,
Thank
just
you.
very quickly,
Thank
I'm just going to conclude then. I would like to clarity and confirmation that the 1.2 million additional funding from Welsh Government is now being allocated to buses, when at the budget meeting in March we were told it's being allocated to potholes. Is that correct? So that really is my most important question. Thank you. Jill.
Thank you. We have now have Councillor Richard, who's also been showing considerable patience, and you have 3 minutes, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you started the meeting by saying that we all might be bus users at some time, quite rightly, and I'm perhaps a bus user more than many other people here are, or use them more frequently than many other people do. And I'm very disappointed by the tone of this debate. A lot of points are being made which could have been drawn out with and dealt with in scrutiny, and I do notice that the relevant scrutiny committee is recommending that we proceed with option A cross-party scrutiny committee. So this does disappoint me that the debate is going in the way it is today. This process has been going on, I think, well, for longer than a year. Speaking from the perspective of a Welsh Pool councillor, there was a public consultation in the town hall asking people's ideas on bus services a year ago. I would like to commend Sarah Leyland Morgan and our transport team for the work that they have done, because people have been very, very carefully listened to. We had a follow-up meeting in Welsh Pool in great detail about the operation of buses serving villages around our town. Points were made about our town bus, which had been taken on board by the officers, and I really do welcome, I would like to thank them for the work that they've done. And we should be shouting from the rooftops the fact that we are now bringing back Sunday services, evening services, so that young people can get into our towns and enjoy our towns more in the evening, and more help for rural villages that have currently got no service at all. If we don't go down this route, and as has been pointed out by Councillor Jackie and by John Forsey, if we were to say, right, we're not going to go ahead with this environment, we would still be having an increase in transport costs. And if council doesn't want to see that increase in transport costs, that means we wouldn't be talking about increasing our bus services, we would be talking about cutting them. Is that what people here really want? Is that what people want? And I would commend this paper. It's taken a huge amount of work. It's been through a proper democratic process. And I think some of the things that we're hearing now are an attempt to frustrate things and will disadvantage many elderly people, many younger people who we really need to be thinking about today as they need to get about our county. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. And if we can have succinct responses there as appropriate to Councillor Bev and to Councillor Richard, that'll be helpful.
Can I come in a point of order?
Yes, I certainly can't deny that, Councillor Jeremy. Yes.
For the meeting, so I request that we move progress, understanding orders, and go to the vote.
I seek advice from Clive on that. I would certainly like responses to questions that have been asked in full session, but on the wider point, I defer to our monitoring officer.
Chair, in the circumstances where a motion has been put from the floor like this, it needs a seconder. If seconded, Chair, it would mean you have to be persuaded that that there has been sufficient debate.
Yes.
If you think that there has been sufficient debate with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so 6 or 7 members still waiting to speak, you can it will go to a vote of council to do that. But Chair, if you feel that the debate hasn't been sufficiently taken at this stage, you just proceed with a normal debate.
Okay, I think we may have to have a sort of a hybrid solution there with a couple more time for a couple more questions, and then I'm afraid we're probably going to have to guillotine. That's my instinct. But if we can have responses at this time,
Chair, sorry, but Clive just suggested you need to have a second. You should be asking for a second to the Jeremy's proposal.
Okay, well let's do that,
which I'm happy to do. Because we're just going round in circles.
Yes,
Councillor Gareth, that's appropriate, but of course the chair, in order to put to the vote, has to be satisfied that there has been sufficient debate at this stage. That's a matter for him.
I fully understand that, Clive, but I'm just seconding Jeremy's.
No, I appreciate that, and thank you for that clarity. Clive, am I in a position where I can take responses to the two series of questions that we've just had, and then move to the vote if that is if that is
Chair,
considered
if
appropriate.
if you are satisfied that at this moment in time we've had sufficient debate of this issue, you can move to a vote. If you are not satisfied, you would
Yes.
just let debate to continue.
Yeah, okay, but can I continue to? Can I insist on then having responses to questions that have been
Absolutely, Chair,
asked?
you can do that.
Okay, well, in that case, I'd like to have the responses to questions that have been asked in good faith, because I'm also concerned about colleagues coming from the same stance as Councillor Jeremy and others, that colleagues will be denied the opportunity to contribute by having to leave for other business because of the duration of the meeting that was set. So therefore, if we can have responses to the last two questions, sets of questions, I then propose to allow things to proceed to a vote. So that would be responses to Councillor Bev and Councillor Richard.
Would you like me to respond, Chair?
Please, absolutely, yourself or John or Sarah as appropriate, because a couple of officers were referred to at different points. But going to you in the first instance, Councillor Jackie, yes.
Yeah, and I do have your questions in front of me, Councillor Bev, that you sent in, and I can understand why you're disappointed that you haven't been able to get a breakdown of the figures. I'm not sure whether we can answer that here, but if you require clarity for that now, I'll ask John if he could just spend a couple of minutes and think about that, because I know he's had the questions as well. But to come back on your other points, can I just say, without responding to each of your points that have come forward, I think I need to go back and say what I said earlier, that if we feel as an authority that we cannot invest in an increased and an improved bus service at this point, then I have to accept that as a democratic process, that is what you're saying. But what I do need to keep saying to you is that if we don't push this forward, we don't have any improvements in our bus services. We will disappoint a huge number of people out there who have actually consulted, engaged, and sent us emails. I'm still getting emails now from people who want to see these improvements. So I'm absolutely assured that out there in the general public, we have got people who want us to improve our bus services. I'd just like to take you back as well. Again, over a year ago, John Forsey, as a new head of HTR then, I believe, he gave us an excellent presentation on how an improved bus service would actually help us with the sustainable powers going forward, but much, much more. It's not just about sustainable powers. This is making people's lives better in our county, and that's what I think we all want to do. And I also know that there's a lot of councillors here, maybe you're not here because some of them have left, who really want to go back to their communities and tell them what improvements that we've made. This is about investing in our communities, not taking away. And I know there are concerns about this, and we've all got concerns. As a cabinet, we're constantly concerned about how we're raising money to deliver our services. But here's an opportunity that we've got. We've got the contracts all lined up. We've got the buses lined up. We know what we're doing. We know people out there want this, and we're in a position to give them something that they really want and really need. So I think that's my response to you, Councillor Bev. I hope that's okay, but we can certainly get any more information that you want. And I think we answered all the other questions that you had. And I'd just like to go back on Councillor Richard. He's absolutely right. Councillor Richard uses the buses all the time. He doesn't drive. And there's a lot of people like that out there in our rural communities who do not drive, and they rely on these buses. And not only do they rely on these buses, their lives depend on it in many cases. And what we're trying to do is improve it for them. We are never, ever going to be able to deliver a bus service.
Political broadcast.
It's not a political broadcast.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy.
Sorry, Chair, just to dip in. There was and thank you, Councillor Jackie, for those responses. They're very grateful to those. But my main question was, could I just have some clarity, sorry, Chair, on the 1.2 million additional funding? That's my main question. Is the pothole money now being reapportioned? That's all I really want to know. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'll get John to explain that to you, and I will stop there. But you can see I'm passionate about this, and it's not political. I'm passionate about delivering good services in our county, nothing to do with politics. Thank you. I'll
Thank you, Councillor Jackie. I've made an error here. I failed to call Councillor Ian in order. I propose finally to allow the floor briefly and within the time slot to Councillor Angela in her role as chair of the relevant scrutiny committee that's been referred to on multiple occasions. I then propose to allow things to move to the vote. I realise this is going to disappoint some people, but this is a problematic situation. Councillor Ian, thank you for your patience.
Could John just answer Bev's?
Absolutely. And if that's been left as an open question, I thought that had been responded to. Okay. John on that one, and then Councillor Ian, and finally Councillor Angela to stand by. Thank you.
In answer to Councillor Bev's question, in the paper is recommending we use SPF funding reserves and risk budget to fund the environment this time round. The rest of it will come as part of the normal budget setting process, where we will have clarity on future funding arrangements.
Thank you, John. That's clear.
Well,
Ian.
sorry. Is it actually so? Is that a yes? So I'm not next year. I'm not interested next year. So the 1.2 million that was proposed that was going to potholes at the budget meeting by the cabinet member, that is now going. That just yes or no. That's now going to this buses. That's all I want to know. Sorry to be. No. Jane's shaking her head. No. Okay. No. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we take that as read. Excellent. Councillor Ian.
Well, that was the question I wanted to ask. It was another member as well, but so you could categorically deny that any of the money that was allocated for highways is going to be used for this money instead.
I think we can come in and say, Councillor Ian, that the money that was set aside for using for highways has been set aside. It's planned, and some of that is already being worked through. If you want further details on that, we can certainly provide that for you, but it is not going to the buses.
Could we have that assurance for 26, 27 as well?
I don't think it's a recurring amount, so I don't think we can do that. Plus, we will have other money coming in. We do know that we'll be working. We've got the bridge to financing for franchising that we're working with Welsh Government on. That will hopefully offer us more opportunities as we're going forward. So I can't see us taking pothole money to pay for buses. I think we will have other opportunities for grants and investment into our bus services next year.
Thank you for that. I now call upon Councillor Angela, who chaired the scrutiny on this. And as I said, that's been referred to on multiple occasions. It's only appropriate that she has the opportunity to contribute.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So I felt at one point that scrutiny was being criticised for his role, and I think that was very unfair because we had a very robust session. Just to remind members who are not a member of ERC scrutiny, just like all the committee meetings and minutes, etc., we all get a copy of them, and they were there in the public arena for anybody to look at if they wanted to. And the report following scrutiny is also in there. I can understand the nervousness from many members because I think we felt that ourselves. It's a huge amount of money. But one of the things that came out very loud and clear during our session was the community engagement. And actually, we complimented the officers on their community engagement. And one thing that was very, very clear is that the current bus delivery service plan is ineffectual. It doesn't seem to suit anybody. We didn't find really any praise for the current situation at all. So it was very, very clear to us that something has to be done differently. And an increase in bus, both direction of travel and numbers of buses was what the public were calling out for. Now, I've got a lot of sympathy, as you could imagine, for Councillor Bev's point of view, and that was of grave concern to me. And whilst this is part of the Sustainable Powys delivery plan, I am very mindful that in my own ward, and therefore it must apply in others, there are members of the community who can't get to work, whose youngsters can't get to school unless they go on the designated school bus. They can't access after school clubs. And generally people can't get around the county for medical or other appointments. So this is striving to meet that. it's not going to suit everybody, because actually, really, we would like a bus every 15 minutes, and that's clearly not something that a county the size and rurality of Powys can provide. But if I'm just to refer to those scrutiny comments, because they have been mentioned here.
Point of order again. If someone's going to carry on, it's got to be bringing something new to debate. We've already heard this, and I'd like us to move forward to the vote.
I share your wish to move to the vote, Councillor Jeremy, and Councillor Angela is responding to references that have been made to her in a scrutiny chair function, and she's about to draw those remarks to a close.
Yeah. So we formed 2 recommendations, and these come from the committee, not to me. And the recommendation 1 was that we do adopt option A, the enhanced network, to see the improved thing. But we did ask that officers keep a sharp eye on the finances of it, and that the service will remain in this budget. And we also ask that the council improve their communications with residents, because what will be crucial is that everybody understands when a bus is coming and where it's going and how to book it for the bookable service. We need to make sure that if we do approve this, that everybody is using it, because although there is some flexibility in this, we did ask actually that officers, keep an eye on that, because it may be that we need to tweak those services to better suit the public. But I just wanted to make that point, that actually it did have robust scrutiny, and I think the criticism of the committee is a little bit unfair. So I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Angela. I'd also just stress that no members have been questioning the professionalism of our officers in relation to their approach to this matter. I think it's really important that is stated. We understand the rough and tumble of politics, which is a different thing, but the professionalism of our officers has not been called into question. Thank you for that. A final word, which is really important, on the issue of the floor from Jane, and then we move to the vote, which has been duly proposed and seconded. Thank you.
I think, Chair, I do need to bring some clarity to the questions that were asked.
Yeah.
So in terms of the funding floor, as you're all aware, we received it very late, and as part of the budget approved by Council back in February, that allocation of 1.2 million was made to highways as part of the 25-26 budget. Now, in terms of the future years, as with all budgets, that is up for debate as we move through into the 26-27 financial year. This paper does highlight that as a potential funding source for the ongoing recurrent pressure, which is 1.8 million based on option A, as a potential funding source from 26-27, but that will be subject to approval, obviously, as Council makes decisions on the overall budget plan next spring. So I hope that does give the clarity needed.
Thank you very much, Jane. I'm now going to defer to Clive to manage the next stage of the process and to make any clarifications that he wishes to do before we move to the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Councillor Jeremy Pugh has put a closure motion to Council that the motion question now be put. Under the Constitution, we now vote on that motion itself. It's been seconded by Councillor Gareth Jones. So, Chair, we're not voting on the motion on the paper. We are voting now on a motion to close the debate.
Yeah.
So it will be, if you want to close the debate, you vote yes. If you don't want to close the debate, you vote no. And if the motion succeeds and the debate is closed, we'll then proceed to a further vote on the substantive motion, which is set out in the paper. I hope that explains it appropriately, Chair. I should just mention that if the motion to put the matter, so the closure motion succeeds, the Constitution does allow, and it says in Rule 546(6) that the mover of the original motion then has a right to respond. So, Chair, there may be a further contribution from Councillor Jackie Charlton should she wish to do so. She doesn't have to, but there's an opportunity to do so in accordance with the Constitution.
Thanks for that clarity, Clive. Let's move to the vote.
Chair, I'm hoping that there'll be something coming up in your chat.
Something's come up in mine, and
The vote is there, Chair.
Yeah, excellent. If any members got any difficulty with that, if they could indicate, it seems to be going smoothly.
Chair, I have nothing in mind.
Oh,
John.
well,
But
Jeremy, you're welcome to give a vote orally. I hope we can anticipate what that direction is, but I take nothing for granted.
Close the debate, please.
Okay. Do we have an indication of the
Councillor Ed's got his hand up, Chair.
Oh, Councillor Ed, absolutely. Sorry, Councillor Ed, I hadn't spotted that.
Sorry, Jerry, I wasn't able to vote, but I'm for.
Okay, so you're supporting the motion put by Councillor Jeremy. I think we need to be looking to close this vote now if there are no further indications.
Chair,
Councillor Roderick appears to have got a point to make. Yeah.
Sorry, my vote hadn't come through, Chair. My form hadn't come through.
Okay.
So, but I am prepared to vote to close the debate.
Thank you. Okay. If I could move to Carrie-Anne or directly to Clive to have clarity on the outcome, please. We can then move progress.
Chair, on the basis you've just closed the vote, so we've closed the vote. We'll put the two sets of votes together and come back to you as soon as we can.
Excellent. Thanks.
Chair, I have a result 44 for. So that's 4 in favour, 1 against. So the motion closure motion has been passed.
Yeah.
Chair, as I indicated before, there is an opportunity for Councillor Jackie to have a right to reply should she wish to adopt that process.
I'm picking up that Councillor Jackie is declining that opportunity, but I may be misreading.
No, I'm quite happy to come in just quickly to close the debate.
Okay.
And just because I wanted to say thank you to everybody for being here today. It's been a very, very good turnout. I'm delighted to see that everybody has got an interest in this. I don't know how the vote is going to go, but you all know what my proposal is, and you've seen the recommendation. And I think I do need to go to the recommendation to read out the recommendation, Chair.
Please go ahead.
So the recommendation, just got to get down to it now. Sorry, I keep flipping up and down the pages and can't find it. Keep getting blank pages. Right, the recommendation. Sorry, members, there is only one recommendation here today, that the council support the Cabinet's decision on the 24th of June 2025 to accept option A as set out in paragraph 3.4 to the report as recommended by the ERC Scrutiny Committee to approve the virement of 1.349 million in this financial year from the SPF grant reserve and the risk budget as set out in table 5, with the required funding for 2026-27 onwards to be considered as part of the normal budget setting process. Thank you.
Chair, can I ask for a seconder from the floor, please? Councillor Peake was the first hand up, I think.
Yes, I think you're right. Closely followed by a couple of other colleagues, but Councillor Peake's got the seconding. Yes, absolutely.
Chair, we'll now proceed to the vote, and again should be coming up in your chat box.
Okay, thank you.
It's there, Chair.
Thank you, Carrie Ann.
Chair, I've got nothing come through again. Can I vote? I'm against.
Thank you, Councillor Jeremy. I've just clicked a link and something else has come up.
Yeah, if you page down, if you enter that, Chair, you go into the vote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you've accepted my vote against.
Yes, that's been registered.
Thank you.
Chair, I
Okay,
believe
thank you.
Chair, I believe I voted. Could you confirm, or could Clive confirm, please?
I don't have sight of that, but Clive will do so.
Yeah, who was that speaking? I didn't catch who that was.
Councillor Ed.
Okay,
Councillor Ed. Thank you,
Councillor
Councillor
Ed,
Ed.
your vote has been registered.
Could you also check mine, Chair? It's Councillor Carl.
Thank you, Councillor Carl.
Councillor Carl, your vote has been registered as well.
Sorry. I'm still having trouble, Chair.
I've got. Okay, so if I can ask Councillor Edwin.
Councillor Bill, also I haven't been able to vote.
Okay, I'm in the process of asking Councillor Edwin to indicate his position.
Yeah, I'm supporting.
Thank you. That's clear. Councillor Sue.
For.
Thank you, and Councillor Benjamin Breeze has indicated as well. Is that to do with the difficulty in voting?
It is, yeah. Against, please.
Okay, your vote is also clear. Are there any other colleagues who've not been able to vote or experiencing difficulty?
Councillor John Yeoman has got his hand up, Chair.
Councillor John.
Against, please.
Thank you. That's been noted. No further difficulties. If we go to another 30 seconds for people to...
Chair, Councillor Gwynforth's also got his hand up.
Chair,
Gwynforth, yeah.
Yeah, Chair, I'm unable to vote electronically. I would vote against.
Okay, that's also been recorded. Thank you.
Believe it or not, Chair, my vote has gone through now.
Right. I'm sure that there'll be no multiple voting, and that'll be checked upon. But thank you for being candid about that point. No further issues from colleagues. We can do a countdown from 10. Then we can draw all the strands together.
Steve, can you just confirm that Councillor Edwin Roddick's electronic vote has been counted, please?
Yes, it has. Yeah.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we should be closing the vote now, Clive, is that correct?
Yes, entirely up to you, Chair. You said your discretion to close the vote.
Yeah. Well, I think we've raised any issues that have been raised. People have had a reasonable opportunity to deal with the electronic one. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The vote is closed.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. I have the result. 25 for the motion, 21 against, 1 abstention.
Thank you very much, Clive. And I'd like to thank all members for their contributions to this important debate. And apologies to those colleagues who were not able to come in with their questions towards the end of the session. I think there are some learning points here for a number of the different functions, and including that in my own. And I'm very pleased that we have a result now. And I'd just like to thank colleagues for their engagement and the seriousness with which they've approached this important issue. So thank you very much for your attendance.
Councillor Carl's got his hand up, Chair.
Councillor Carl must have a right to speak. Councillor Carl.
Thank you, Chair. Just confirmation, this is a recorded vote, is it not? So we'll have the results in a few days' time, or...
Chair, as always, this is a recorded vote and the results will be attached to the minutes to this meeting.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Clive. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, and I wish you a good afternoon, and thank you for your participation and your contributions. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Bye all.